So in this video I am going to share an absolute ton of books. I've got an entire bed full of books here to share, all around the incredibly exciting theme of the uncanny. And I'm coming at the uncanny from the idea of like liminal spaces. So the uncanny, something that unsettles you, somewhere where there is a sense of foreboding. It can be an in-between place, the liminal, and I think any places that are in between spaces, think hospital corridors at night where time seems to have stopped, endless rows of corridors and dark rooms coming off them. You're in the realm of the uncanny or the liminal. I think the liminal also corresponds to the emotional liminal, so a place in time where we're emotionally between two stages. So it could be like coming into, say, motherhood. That's a big change. You're in this liminal changing space. It could be something geographical, like a crossroads is a liminal space. It's not really a place, it's just taking you somewhere else. I think journeys as well can be liminal, getting from one place to another. When you're on a journey, you're kind of stuck in this waiting area. But whatever it is, there is unsettling overtones afoot, and I've got a huge selection of books to share because next month in August, my prompt for my Candy Reading Challenge is Uncanny August. I've had so much fun putting books together for this. I just want to share them all with you. Most of them I haven't read, some I have read. I'm just going to share titles just to give you an idea. Some really exciting, uncanny, spooky, weird feeling books. Do you dare to enter? Be careful, we're in the realms of dangerous reading. So first, as with any reading challenges I've done this year, I'm having to layer in some of these challenges with other things that I'm doing. So I'm doing my DIY literature degree. My focus is still Victorian literature, the Gothic. It's great for covering the Gothic. I'm going to share some Victorian literature which I think will fit perfectly. It'll be perfect for me because of my studies. So I have been slowly working my way through Elizabeth Gaskell's book of short stories. So this is a pocket classics edition. It's Lois the Witch and Other Stories. So I've already read Lois the Witch, and I've also read the Old Nurse's story, and I've read the Squire's story. I've still got the Crooked Branch and the Grey Woman to read, so I would like to finish this. So I've got some short stories there. Of course, these all kind of have a slightly gothic or uncanny slant to them, ghost stories or the unexpected. So I'm really looking forward to reading Elizabeth Gaskell. If you want to go for a classic, then Elizabeth Gaskell's short stories would be great. And on a similar vein, I picked up this recently in a charity shop, the Mammoth Book of Victorian and Edwardian Ghost Stories. This looks fantastic. I've had a quick look through. It covers so many authors that I want to read. I see right at the beginning there's Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu, who is really well known for sort of gothic writing. I have not read any work by him yet, but the first short story in here is called Shulk and the Painter, and it's by him, so I really would like to prioritize that one. There's also Charles Dickens in here, Number One, Branch Line, The Singleman. Look, there's just so many other stories. So I think if I pick this one up, I'm going to definitely prioritise the Charles Dickens short story and the Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu story as well. So Victorian ghost stories, of course, it's a genre that really took off with ghost storytelling in the Victorian age. It'd be a great way to get into that idea of the uncanny, because anything to do with ghosts or spirits or parallel worlds that we can't quite see that's a great theme for uncanny reading. Another one that I want to prioritise, I've got Charlotte Perkins Gilman's The Yellow Wallpaper and Other Stories. I've heard a lot of great things about the yellow wallpaper, about a woman slowly going mad after giving birth and being locked in a room. It sounds very uncanny, where the wallpaper starts to take on different forms. That's the kind of themes I think the story is about, so I cannot wait to read The Yellow Wallpaper. Going to novels, I have already read this one. I read this one in April, Charles Dickens' Bleak House. I think this is a really great uncanny read as well. It's set around a court action of jaundice and jaundice, where everybody is fighting over their portion of an inheritance claim, and this case has been going on for generations. Generations of family members have been turned mad waiting for the outcome of the case. They have wasted their entire lives in this waiting zone. If you've ever had any dealings with court as well, you will know everything takes forever. You are stuck in a perpetual feeling of waiting. And this book does have that theme. And there is dread and there's intrigue in here. There's gothic settings. There's a possibility of spirit action as well. It does have an uncanny feel about it. It's a great one, so this would be great as well if you wanted to go for a classic. Now, one that I really want to read, I have no idea what this is about, because I go into all of my Victorian classics blind if I can, but I'm just going on the front cover. To me that looks really odd, and it's called The Odd Women, George Gissin, The Odd Women. It kind of looks a bit spooky, a bit odd, a bit The Shining, if you know what I mean. So I'm going to put that in just because it's got that feel from the cover. So for me, that fits. So those are my classic picks. I'm going to show you now a planned book that I'm definitely going to be reading in August, because I've got a buddy read with the wonderful Larika and also Julie over at Bookish Travels. I'll link both of their channels. We are going to read Joanne Harris's Coastliners, and again, the subject matter of the book might not be uncanny, so why is it on this list? It's a coastline, and for me in my spiritual path, I've often found working with the liminal that where elements meet is a fantastic liminal space. You see it all the time in the idea of the crossroads where different paths meet, but I think when you throw elements in there as well, so the earth meeting a body of water, that coastline, it is a fantastic liminal space. I love those boundary edges of elements. I just think it's so magical. So anything to do with coastlines or the boundaries of things, I think the edges of woods or on the edge of lakes, it's all a fantastic liminal space. So Coastliners, that's in here because of the title. Okay, let's stick to that idea of elements meeting, like the coastline. I've been collecting, and I've said this on the channel for a while, lighthouse books. I am fascinated with liminal space, and I think lighthouses have a reputation for the ghostly, for the uncanny. They're solitary. They're often a site of shipwrecks and spirits and ghosts. There are loads of ghost stories, true life ghost stories that are set in lighthouses, and it's also that meeting space of rock or land coming out of an ocean surrounded with a boundary. Perfect for an uncanny setting. I am very drawn to lighthouses. I want to go on a grand tour of lighthouses. I just think that would be so much fun. So I'm going to share my lighthouse books with you. The first one is Moomin Popper at the Sea, Tove Jansson's amazing Moomin series. So this is set with a lighthouse in it. It's one I haven't read. I cannot wait to read this one. So a lighthouse setting. I have read this one and I can remember loving it. I recently rebought it in a charity shop to add to this collection. The Light Between Oceans, lighthouse keepers and the family of lighthouse keepers, set around the idea of wanting a child and the lengths that you'll go to get a child, and your past finally catching up on you. This one will really pull at the heartstrings. It's a great book. I'm really glad to have this back in my collection, but it would fit with that liminal, uncanny setting of a lighthouse. I picked up Virginia Woolf last month in a charity shop, To the Lighthouse. Again, it's in there because of the setting. I've also got The Lighthouse Witches, which just looks fantastic, set in a remote Scottish island where strange and terrible events have happened, and it starts a witch hunt. So this just looks absolutely fabulous. It also ties in with my witch lit fiction. And another one that I am absolutely dying to read is Iris Murdoch's The Sea. Not set in a lighthouse, but set in a lonely cottage on the edge of the shore. So you're staying and living in the liminal. Well-known theatre director Charles Araby, who has come for a life of solitude, but strange creatures begin to emerge out of the sea. This just sounds so fantastic. I can't wait to read this one. A very eerie liminal setting with inexplicable creatures appearing. Just sounds perfect for an uncanny liminal space read. I picked up this one, The New Uncanny Tales of Unease. So this is a collection of short stories featuring A.S. Byatt, Edgar Kerrett, Jared Woodward, Ramsey Campbell, Christopher Priest, Frank Cottrell Boyce, Hanif Qureshi, and many more. Sounds brilliant. Oh, I've just opened up a story called Doll's Eyes. Perhaps I need to go and read this one in my doll room in the house. So another collection of short stories that just fits perfectly. It's actually collated to be uncanny stories. I think that one might be a scary read. Let's have a little break from the fiction. Let's have a look at some non-fiction books I've picked up. I found this one a while ago now for 50p in a charity shop. This was shortlisted for the Bale Gifford Prize for Non-Fiction in 2021. This is called Islands of Abandonment. Now, I am absolutely obsessed with urban exploring. When I used to do more photography than I do now, I would often be seen scrambling under security fences to get inside abandoned buildings to take photos like these. These are some of my images that I took. There is just something about an abandoned building. Like I say, I am absolutely obsessed with setting. There is just something. I love picking up the energy of abandoned buildings, and it is a very liminal energy. It's an abandoned building. It's now waiting. It's just sat there silently waiting. It's not being used for what it's intended for. That is very liminal, very uncanny. And this is a book that shares all of these uncanny settings with photographs and talks about them. I just think this book is so up my street. This one has been waiting for August for me to read, and I just think it looks incredible. It says that this book is about abandoned places, ghost towns. Isn't this just perfect for the theme? Exclusion zones, no man lands, and fortress islands, and what happens when humans leave and nature is allowed to take over. Just fabulous. I've also got this book called Under the Tump. Now the Tump is the area of land where Herefordshire joins Wales, and it's where I grew up. I grew up 2 miles outside Hay-on-Wye in the tiniest little village, 3 miles from the nearest house, and I would cycle into Hay-on-Wye as a little girl to spend all my pocket money on books. And it's a borderland. It's not classed as England, it's not necessarily Wales, it is that liminal space. So I actually grew up in a liminal space on a borderland called the Tump. I have already read one book like this and loved it. This is the book that I've still got on my bookcase waiting to read. It's a captivating personal picture of country life in the 21st century, and it's based around how and why. So this is going to take me right back, and I've just remembered another Victorian book I've got which would also fit, because it's also set in exactly the same location. Hang on, I'm going to get it. So the book I'm talking about is Kilvert's Diary. So this is set around a village literally a mile away from where I grew up, where the Red Spence Inn is. There was a big pub there. When I realised that there was a book called Kilvert's Diary about a country clergyman born in 1840 who spent time visiting his parishioners, walking the lanes and fields of Herefordshire and writing his diary, I am all in, because this is literally going to be about the villages I expect where I grew up and spent my childhood years. So it's set in a borderland, so I cannot wait to read this one as well. Going back to non-fiction, I've had this one on my shelf for a while. Claire Gilman, Learning to Love the Spaces in Between, Discovering the Power of Liminal Spaces. Gosh, does this one sound fabulous. So you've got chapters like Transition and Change, The Fertile Void, Hovering Between Life and Death, that's that life stage liminal space. Opening the Doors of Perception is another chapter. Mind Altering Practices and Substances is another chapter, taking you into like those parallel worlds. Tapping into the Divine, so again that's like accessing like a spirit world, a different plane of existence. Tuning into natural phases and cycles, so that turning of the wheel from one time to another, that's also a liminal space. Wilderness, Thin Places and Pilgrimage. For me, that includes those places where elements meet, like the shoreline or the coastline, and then our natural world on the brink as well. I can't wait to read this one as well. There are just so many books on this theme that I want to study. I think I am going to have to, just beyond a 1 month reading prompt, turn this into a focused body of study for my reading DIY literature degree. I think I'm going to plan this out for next year, because it's obviously something that I'm really fascinated with. But that idea of life stages as well, so going from say child to teenager, or teenager to adult, or adult to crone, crone to death, birth and death, or things like married and single, parent or not a parent, they're all liminal moments. This one, Barbara G. Walker's The Crone, Women of Age, Wisdom and Power. The crone age, you're very in touch with the liminal here, because not only are you going into your last transition phase, which is often really tough, but also the next transition stage is a biggie. Let's all face it, that idea of life and death. So this one will be fascinating to read. Based on that idea as well, I've also got this book, The Silent Mansions, A Life in Graveyards. So this is part personal meditation, part social history. If you love spending time in graveyards, which I do, you can feel that liminal energy. So when I saw this in a charity shop, I was intrigued. This has been on my shelf for far too long waiting. It's by Jean Sprackland. I just think it sounds intriguing. Can't wait to read it. There are a few photographs. So we've got photographs of graves, which I just think that's beautiful. So I wonder how many graveyards I can visit next month as well. That's going to be a challenge too that I want to take part in as well. Like I said, I'm really excited for this challenge. If you just think, well no, just give me fiction books for liminal space and the uncanny, I've got you. I've got another big pile of books here. The first one is all of these actually I found in charity shops. The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. I know this has been talked about lots on BookTube. I know that loads of you will have already read it, but I get my books from charity shops, so I just read them when I find them. But this sounds fabulous. This is that idea of the uncanny with a time loop, So somebody has been murdered, and each day Aidan Bishop is too late to save her. The only way to break this cycle is to identify Evelyn's killer. But every time the day begins again, Aidan wakes in the body of a different guest, and someone is desperate to stop him ever escaping Blackheath. So it's a time loop. It's time going backwards and forwards, a bit like Groundhog Day, but with a murder to solve. So you've got the idea of a murder, that's liminal space, that's the uncanny, but a time loop, it doesn't get more uncanny than that. Stuck in a time loop, I think that just sounds horrifying. But not only that, you're entering different characters' bodies and seeing it from different points of view. It sounds like such a fantastic read. So this is perfect for the uncanny or the liminal. This is one that I found last week in a charity shop, Once Upon a River. Again, this has got a time loop element in it. Again, this plays with the idea of death not being death, so it's perfect for liminal space. It's also got a river in it, riverbanks and land meeting river. They're just perfect settings to set these uncanny liminal stories. The blurb says on the back that a man bursts into a inn with a dead corpse of a child who is found drowned in the river. A few hours later, the child comes back to life. Who does she belong to? Is it magic? Sounds really fascinating. It definitely, with that element of life and death and things not being quite right, it does sound uncanny. It just sounds brilliant. Another one that I picked up a Stephen King. Now, I am collecting Stephen King and I've never read him. Well, I've read The Gunslinger once and I did not know what to make of that, so I've decided to collect Stephen King, and at some point I'm going to just give him a good go to read. But I found this in the charity shop, Fairy Tale, and this as well sounds fantastic. You've got a recluse in a big house at the top of a hill with a locked shed in the backyard. When he dies, a 17-year-old enters his shed to find a portal to another world. Portals to parallel worlds that you didn't know that were there. Again, liminal, uncanny, weird, shouldn't be going on, what the hell. Stephen King fairy tales, that's another one I really want to get to. This one, I know this is a favourite of a lot of you who on BookTube, because you told me when I shared this last time. Another one I found in the charity shop, The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. We've got a cemetery of forgotten books in here. So not only forgotten books and a library, like a library with forgotten books in, that shouldn't be a thing. A library should be full of activity with books being borrowed. There's something about a library of forgotten books. You're already in a spooky setting, but it's called the cemetery of forgotten books. You've got a double whammy of liminal there. In fact, it goes on to say it's a labyrinth library. Labyrinths, that is just uncanny, liminal space, being stuck in a labyrinth. Oh, it makes me have chills just thinking about it. Have a 10-year-old child being brought to this library to choose just one book from the dusty shelves, but there is a whole mystery around this book that pans out as the tale unfolds. It sounds amazing. I only know what the blurb tells me. It sounds brilliant. It's got lots of uncanny liminal space elements in there. I can't wait to read this one. Another one that I found in a charity shop, and this would also fit for Ben's prompt for the Read Good Challenge, because I think Ben's prompt is to read a book nominated for the Booker Prize. Well, this was longlisted for the Booker Prize in 2019. This is Elif Shafak's book, 10 minutes 38 seconds in this strange world. And this is the 10 minutes 38 seconds of somebody who's just died. The blurb says, in the first minute following her death, Tequila Leela's consciousness begins to ebb slowly and steadily, like a tide receding from the shore. Again, look, you've got a shoreline reference there. Her brain cells, having run out of blood, were now completely deprived of oxygen, but they did not shut down. Not right away. Now, if that isn't an intriguing, enticing blurb to pull you into a liminal space, I just don't know what is. So that one sounds fantastic too. And then another book around death. We're being so cheery here, I know. This is Paulo Coelho's Veronica Decides to Die. So this is about somebody wanting to end their life. She's brought back from her failed attempt. Her heart is now irreparably damaged, and she's told she's only now got a few days to live. And it's those few days are told in this story about changing your opinion on what it means to be alive. So it's very much set within this tragic situation of liminal space between life and death, and I just think that sounds like it's going to really pull on my heartstrings. So that's another one that I'm just itching to read. Before I carry on with any more fiction books, I also want to share some Shakespeare plans I've got, because I am still thinking about my DIY literature degree. Now, I've already read Hamlet, so that would have been quite a good uncanny space Shakespeare play to read. This month I've read and listened to A Midsummer Night's Dream, which I loved. Again, you've got that idea of dreaming and dreamscape and the fae and the fairy world alongside our own world. Fantastic if you want to read something that's liminal with Shakespeare. One that I haven't read, which I also think would fit perfectly for this kind of theme, is Macbeth. So I will be planning to read Macbeth next month during this prompt. But also Shakespeare's Wife, I want to skim read and remind myself of the first bit of this book, and I do want to finish this next month. Why is this liminal? I think the story of wives of famous men, they're kind of on the edge, they're kind of in the background, they're kind of not talked about, but they were there, they were forming the story as well. But as a forgotten entity, I think the wives of famous men are liminal lives, and I am obsessed with Anne Hathaway. This is great. It does take some concentrating on because of Germaine Greer's sort of scholarly research way that she approaches her writing, but it's fabulous. So I think anything to do with wives being othered, that's just a fantastic subject matter as well within the liminal. So there's that option as well. So linking the liminal with like dreams as well, I've got a few more non-fiction here. Chagall, if you wanted to read an art book, Chagall is a very famous artist for kind of his dreamscapes and dream-like figures in his paintings. Now, I've had this book for years and I love the work of Chagall, but I have never read the text in the book, and I'm beginning to think I would actually quite like to read the text. So if I was going to pick a artist to read about for an uncanny month or a liminal space month, it would be the story of Chagall, just because of his link to dreams and the dream world in his work. So that's another possibility if you wanted to go on an art quest with your reading in a liminal uncanny month. And even more clearly linked to dreaming, I've got a few books here based on spirituality, pagan paths or nature. So dream divination plants in the Northern European tradition. This is by an author called Corinne Boyer. Now Corinne Boyer is absolutely a fantastic author to read if you are looking at working with flowers or plants or poisons even. She has a wealth of knowledge. Her writing style is wonderful. So this is about just working with plants to access the land of dreams, so that astral plane of dreaming, and to work with that within your spiritual practice. It is only a tiny little book, but how fascinating does that sound? Again, on the theme of plants, with that idea of a parallel universe, we don't have to go to something that you think might be made up. They are real in real time. The world of fungi and mushrooms, and that layer underneath the earth that you can't see. Merlin Sheldrake has written this book, Entangled Life: How Fungi Make Our Worlds, Change Our Minds and Shape Our Futures. This sounds fascinating. This has been on my want to read list for forever. They are metabolic masters, earth makers and key players in most of nature's processes. Margaret Atwood on the back says that this is gorgeous, and George Monbiot says it's a true masterpiece. I can't wait to read this one either. So we can take that idea of plants and nature as that parallel world which we live with, and we can look at folk tales of Britain and Ireland, but this is botanical folk tales. So I just think the stories that are hidden within the nature that surrounds us, that often we never look at, we don't think about way enough. So I think botanical folk tales would be lovely to read about. I have another one here. I have the mythic and magical folklore of plants. So those secret stories in the plants that we're walking past every day, they're like portals, aren't they, to see a plant and to find out its history and it's the myths around it and the folklore around it, or even how it can be used in ways we could never dream. That's all liminal space study. And I've also got this one, The Hidden Life of Trees by Peter Wohlleben. What they feel, how they communicate, discoveries from a secret world. That tagline there, discoveries from a secret world, that is liminal space brought to life right there. So that's a whole selection of nature books that you could read. So I've got a few more books left. So for my DIY literature degree, I picked up a couple of fairy tale books that could fit, I think, any sort of retelling where a tale is shifted and changed. That tale now runs alongside the main tale. So I think there's an argument to be made for retellings being some sort of exploration into the liminal. It's not the original tale, it's been twisted slightly, it's been altered. I love that idea of finding almost like echo voices and echo plots and echo settings within a fairy tale retelling. It becomes liminal the minute you retell a story. So I've picked up Nikita Gill's Fierce Fairy Tales and Other Stories to Stir Your Soul. So this is a poetry book which I think is wonderful, and you've got titles such as Trapped, Lessons in Surviving Long-Term Abuse, A Boy Lost, you've got Metamorphosis, Rapunzel's Note Left for Mother Gothel. So really fabulous poems to retell a fairy tale. Can't wait to get to this one. And then this one, which is a Jack Zipes book, Don't Bet on the Prince, Contemporary Feminist Fairy Tales in North America and England. A feminist retelling of the fairy tale. So the liminal space of a woman's voice. I think sometimes women's voices are so othered and so pushed away. It's that idea of like the wife of a famous man, that it becomes a story echoing out of liminal space. So that is another possibility for this theme. Right, I've got 4 more fiction books left. So I've got the incredible Carrie Fisher's book, which I recently found in a charity shop, Postcards from the Edge. I do not know what this book is about, but Postcards from the Edge, that title is liminal enough for me, so it's going in because of the title. This one was in my last charity shop haul, Philippa Gregory, Tidelands. Again, it's going into the mix of possibilities because of the title of the book, Tidelands. It's that meeting of elements, land and water, a tideland. For me, it's in because of that. This one is also from a recent charity shop haul, The Midnight Library, another secret library. And midnight, that's a liminal time where one day becomes another. So what is a library doing open at midnight? You're already in that uncanny, spooky place. The blurb is so fantastic. It says Nora's life has been going from bad to worse. Then at the stroke of midnight on her last day on earth, she finds herself transported to a library. There she is given the chance to undo her regrets and try out each of the other lives that she might have lived, which raises the ultimate question: with infinite choices, what is the best way to live? Such a great exploration of the liminal and the uncanny and strangeness going on, with a liminal setting, a liminal time, a liminal moment in your life set between life and death. Just perfect. The last book is the book that I earmarked for Ben's Read Good challenge, because this covers both prompts. I think this classes as an uncanny read, but it's also the winner of the Man Booker Prize in 2014. So, The Narrow Road to the Deep North. The title of this, like a narrow road to the north, sounds like a journey road. So anything with sort of that idea of a journey from one place to the other, or being on a road, that for me puts it into the realm of the uncanny just by its sheer title. However, I do know that this is set within a Japanese prisoner of war camp. I think war stories and places where you're held, it's a waiting space, isn't it? Wars as well, everything stops, the world stops. It's this uncanny, horrible place of waiting, of not quite knowing what's happening. You're not rooted, you're free floating in those times in life. So I think that fits on many levels. It does cover both prompts, and it's another one I can't wait to read. So I am now surrounded by walls of books. I hope that gave you some ideas of what you could read if you wanted to read uncanny books or books about the liminal, the ways that you could come at that theme. Lots of different ways of coming at that theme. I'm sure you can think of equally as many that I haven't covered, but those are what I had on my bookshelves. Those are some ideas if you did want to join in with the Candy Reading Challenge next month for Uncanny August. But if not, it's just a great selection of books to know about. So I hope you enjoyed that, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye.